What's up guys, my name is Brandon, welcome to Quick Flicks. Today we are covering X, directed by Ti West, releasing in 2022. Viewer discretion advised, this is probably the most non-family friendly movie I have covered, so just a heads up. X follows a group of adult filmmakers who rent a farmhouse in Texas to make an adult film. But when they encounter a mysterious couple who live on the property, things quickly take a turn for the worse. This film is a love letter to the classic 70s slasher films, being compared to the likes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. With all the suspense, gore, and scares you'd expect, the performances are top-notch and the atmosphere is incredibly creepy. With a prequel titled Pearl and another on the way called Maxine, it's safe to say Ti West is solidifying his place as a modern-day maestro of horror, weaving intricate narratives that explore the genre's depths. Anyway, I'll stop wasting your time, let's hop into the movie. The movie opens up with Sheriff Dentler investigating a crime scene. At the crime scene lies a lifeless body on the ground, accompanied by a blood-stained hatchet nearby on the front porch of a house. Further exploration inside of the house reveals additional deceased individuals, with a televangelist preaching on the television. However, it is the mysterious presence lurking in the basement that spooks our sheriff. We transition 24 hours earlier into our lovely main protagonist, Maxine, played by Mia Goth, an aspiring actress sniffing some nose candy, accompanied by her executive producer boyfriend, Wayne, played by Martin Henderson, who you may recognize as Mike from 2018's The Strangers Prey at Night. The two do some tonsil hockey before setting out on their adventure to make the next big film in Hollywood, titled The Farmer's Daughter, which if that doesn't tell you what genre of film they're in, I don't know what will. Maxine and Wayne travel down the road in their van, alongside the rest of the crew. Actress Bobby Lynn Parker, played by Brittany Snow, who you may recognize from 2005's The Pacifier, 2012's Would You Rather, and 2008's Prom Night. Ex-Marine and current actor Jackson, played by Kid Heckin' Cudi himself, director and cameraman RJ, played by Owen Campbell, and RJ's assistant girlfriend, Lorraine, played by Jenna Ortega, who I'm sure you all recognize from Scream 5 and 6, Netflix's You, and Wednesday. The shy Lorraine is a bit weirded out by the group's film genre choice, being the more innocent and inexperienced one compared to the rest of the crew. She finds it hard to fully embrace their naughty creative direction. The crew make a pit stop at a gas station, where Maxine and Wayne head inside to gather some goodies. Maxine passionately expresses her aspirations of becoming the next big Hollywood star, when they get distracted by that televangelist we saw earlier. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew fills up the van outside, RJ filming the opening scene of the film, Jackson pumping the van full of gas. But that's a boring way to open up the movie.
If you tilt the camera up from the nozzle, it'll look like he's using his cock.
With their gas station antics behind them, the crew hits the road again, eventually coming across a meaty collision between a smashed up car and a butchered cow. It's a sight that's both gory and oddly amusing, and would you looky there, there's our sheriff, reporting for duty. The group eventually reaches their destination, the ranch we saw at the beginning. They arrive at the main house, and Wayne steps out to inform the occupants of their arrival. However, a man named Howard emerges with a double-barrel shotgun, mistaking Wayne for an intruder. He quickly lowers his weapon upon realizing that Wayne is indeed the person who responded to their boarding house rental ad. The group gathers their belongings as Howard leads them to the boarding house, but not before Maxine notices Howard's elderly wife, Pearl, staring at her from upstairs. Spooky. They arrive at the boarding house, Howard letting them know that the house was for soldiers during the Civil War, hence everything being run down. He also questions why Wayne didn't mention bringing all of the others, but Wayne gives him some extra cash to sweeten the deal. Howard demands some discretion, but that discretion is gonna have to hold off, Pops. We have a film to shoot. Now, this is YouTube after all, so there is quite the amount of censoring here. Just use your imagination or watch the movie. Anyway, Jackson and Bobby Lynn get to work and shoot their first scene. Fun fact, Kid Cudi's mom is a huge fan of his work and has to see all of his work, whether it's music or film or whatever. When he told her that she wasn't allowed to watch this movie because of, well, the nudity, she was pretty sad. So he requested a mommy edit from director Ti West, who actually obliged and delivered the mommy cut 2 days later. So in the end, Kid Cudi's mom got to watch X without the naughty bits.
You know, she was just like, man, I want to see it. And I was like, well, let me hit up Ti West and see if it's possible to make like a a mommy edit. And he hit me up 2 days later and he was like, what's your mom's address? I'm gonna send it to her house.
Maxine steps out to take a smoke break and wanders around until she reaches a lake. She strips down and skinny dips while that spooky Pearl watches from afar. While floating around, an alligator makes its appearance. We switch back and forth between this suspenseful moment and some deep storytelling for the farmer's daughter.
My van broke down on the highway and I was hoping I could use y'all's phone to call for help.
Would you like to come inside?
Luckily, Maxine gets out of the water without even realizing the alligator. On her way back to the house, she notices Pearl waving at her. She makes the odd decision to walk over and go inside, sharing a glass of lemonade with her. After awkward silence and gulping it down, Maxine realizes her weird decision to be inside of the house and attempts to leave, but Pearl would rather reminisce about her past. She used to be a dancer, but due to circumstances around Howard going to war, that dream was taken from her. Oddly enough, in these pictures, Pearl looks just like Maxine. Well, that's because it is. Pearl is actually played by Maxine actress Mia Goth, who wore 13 pounds of prosthetics to achieve the creepy elderly woman look. The prosthetics took about 4 hours to apply each day. It's pretty crazy. Mia Goth is definitely a trooper. While Maxine is looking through the pictures of Pearl and Howard, Pearl takes it upon herself to touch that side boob. This freaks Maxine out a bit, but before she can do anything about it, Howard arrives home, and Pearl suggests Maxine leave before he sees her. She sneaks out of the side door and makes her way back to the boarding house, running into Wayne on the way, who has been looking everywhere for her. As it's time to do her scene, Maxine gets ready, and the crew heads to the barn to shoot the next scene. Again, lots of censoring here due to a lot of naughty activities. While Maxine and Jackson get it on, everyone seems to really be liking what they're seeing. Even Pearl, who peeks through the window of the barn, wishing it was her getting a piece of that cutty instead. So much so that she goes back home and tries dolling herself up for Howard. But due to his heart conditions, he can't butter her biscuit and turns her down. Poor Pearl. Happy from a successful day of shooting, the group celebrates with drinks and a nice tune, with Jackson on the guitar and Bobby Lynn showing off her beautiful singing voice.
I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hill.
We get a split screen effect going on, and while Bobby Lynn sings, we see a sad Pearl wiping off the makeup from her face since Howard didn't want to do the do. The song ends with Lorraine announcing that she wants to do a scene in the movie.
I want to do a scene in the movie.
What? No.
RJ is obviously reluctant, and when he and Lorraine get in a back and forth about it, Wayne takes him outside, seemingly to calm him down, but actually tries to convince him to just let her do it, as it'll add so much more to the cinematic experience. RJ isn't a fan of that at all, and tries to explain Lorraine isn't like Maxine and Bobby Lynn, but rather a nice girl.
Lorraine is not like the others in there. She is a nice girl.
Beg your pardon?
Against RJ's wishes, it's showtime. It's honestly a pretty horrible situation to be in, and I feel for RJ. Lorraine gets all groomed and ready for her scene, taking off her cross necklace and going down on the Jacksonator. It's a pretty traumatic experience for RJ, and he can't help but cry in the shower afterward. While the others are sleeping, he decides to take off and leave them behind. He gets in the van and starts to drive away, but is immediately stopped by a very disturbing looking Pearl standing in his path. He gets out to try and help her, but she wants a piece of that camera boy. When he rejects her, the movie takes a turn down the slasher route, and she gives him a good ol' stab to the neck. While he bleeds out on the ground, that ain't enough for Pearl. She slices and dices that fool up, blood getting all over the headlights to give us this spooky red lighting. This is a perfect time for Pearl to bust out them dance moves, looking similar to the photo she showed Maxine earlier. Lorraine awakes to find RJ gone. Worried that he left her due to her scene, she asks an almost naked Wayne to help her find him. Annoyed, he agrees, and while Lorraine heads up to the main house, Wayne goes to the barn. He walks inside, yelling out for RJ when he steps on a rusted nail. Thing looks like it has tetanus all over it. In pain, he hears a noise, and thinking it's RJ, he gains the willpower to get up and go peek through a little hole in the wall. This can't end well. Oh, that'd be a painful one. Pearl comes inside, making sure the job is done, giving him one last jab to the neck with a pitchfork. At the house, Howard comes out to see Lorraine. Like Lorraine, he can't seem to find Pearl. He invites her inside and tells her to go get a flashlight from the cellar so they can go out and find RJ and Pearl. Obviously finding it a bit suspicious, she goes against her better judgment and heads down. Finding the light rather quickly, she heads back up to find the door locked. She begins to panic and runs back down to find another way out, but is instead greeted to the sight Sheriff Dentler saw at the beginning of the movie, a mutilated male corpse, causing her to let out a Scream Queen in the Works yelp. Some cool attention to detail, you can actually see the victim's missing persons photo on the milk jug Jackson is drinking back at the boarding house. He's interrupted by Howard, inquiring about Pearl. Jackson volunteers to come on out and lend a hand in the Pearl search party. They stroll by the lake, and all of a sudden, Jackson spots a car taking a dip underwater. He swivels around to catch Howard, going on a spiel about how he can't give Pearl the hammer anymore, and that he also doesn't appreciate Jackson trying to entice her by doing the do with all of these other girls in front of her. Jackson, looking confused, gets a chest full of double barrel and blown into the water. Meanwhile, Pearl sneaks into bed with Maxine, leaving a little RJ reminder on her back. Maxine flips around, spots the unexpected guest, and lets out an ear-piercing scream, waking up Bobby Lynn, who runs in on the commotion to spot Pearl walking out of the house naked. Bobby Lynn's good intentions have her follow the naked Pearl to the dock, clothing her, but Pearl doesn't show any gratitude.
Why'd you come with me?
Why should you get to have it all? What have you ever done except be a whore?
Bobby Lynn, obviously upset, tries leaving, but instead takes a dive with the gator. Maxine, playing a real-life game of hide-and-seek, hides under a bed that the old couple lay on, eavesdropping as they chat about their murder spree. Howard finally agrees to get it on with Pearl, while Maxine gets front row seats. Not a fan of the show, she sneaks out and tries to get to the van, but finds the tires flat and RJ's corpse. Lorraine's yelling for help from the basement gets her attention. She grabs Wayne's gun in the glove compartment and heads inside. Maxine runs to the cellar to free Lorraine, but Lorraine gets sassy, blaming Maxine for everything that has happened. She begins to run out of the house, only to get shot in the face by Howard. As he tries to drag her body inside, Lorraine lets out a dying cough, which startles Howard and causes him to suffer a fatal heart attack. Maxine gets the old folks' truck keys and aims her gun at Pearl as the TV plays that televangelist, with Maxine saying,
"I will not accept a life I do not deserve,"
just as the preacher does. Unfortunately, Maxine finds that the gun is unloaded. Pearl takes advantage and fires her shotgun at Maxine, missing. However, the recoil is strong enough to blast her out of the house, where she breaks her hip. Pearl asks for Maxine's help, but as you would expect, she refuses. Maxine hops in the truck and begins a Pearl popping event as she adds a head-crushing finale. She then drives away, rewarding herself with a little more nose candy. The next day, it's Officer Dentler and his squad on the scene. The televangelist sermon is playing on loop, where we find out Maxine is his daughter, and he's searching for her. It's kind of a weird thing to add in my opinion. The deputy finds the camera used to film the farmer's daughter. Dentler's got the punchline as to what we just witnessed.
What do you think is on it?
By the looks of everything, I see one goddamn fucked up horror picture.
And the movie ends. Let me know what you thought of X. Did you like it? Hate it? Everything you expected? Let me know down below. I don't know if I'll be diving into the sequel, Pearl, given its distinct pacing compared to the first movie. However, if it piques your interest, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to cover it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.